Ginger, I love your artwork. It's really inspiring. I just wondered how it all began for you.
Where do I start is the question always in my mind when people ask me that question. I think I have to say it was naturally born out of curiosity for beauty and wonder. As a little girl, I used to wander in the fields and in the woods amongst all the little rippling streams, even on the building site when it rained, you know, all the rain would come down and go between the rocks and things like that. That fascinated me. And I would build and fantasize that I was somewhere with this big waterfall. And I just loved nature, and I just was filled with that. And then my mother says to me, "You must tell them about when you first went to school, how they had me come in and they had you sitting in the corner because they thought that you had copied the map." And I told them, no, she didn't do that. She drew it totally freehand. She's just like that. I was 5. And then it went on. Of course, she always says, you should tell them about Mickey Mouse. That we were in awe because we thought you were copying, you know, Mickey Mouse, but no, you could draw it. But they'd ask me, how did you do that? From memory, there wasn't a book, there wasn't anything. How did you know where to put the head and where to put the legs and get the proportion right? I just did it. And then they let me have free range in the basement. I could paint anything I wanted. And it moved on to a very tiny little bathroom that was all bright red and gold Japanese flowers and things. So that's sort of where it began.
So art was always part of your life then, even when you were really, really small?
For me. But as life went on, it became a deeper vision. I realized this was a gift that God had given me, and I should use it for humanity. So one thing after another led me deeper into the vision that my artwork stands for now.
How did the soul of an artist come about for you?
It seems as though it was natural. That's when it has become that I can accept the idea that I am born as a soul of the artist. Because even when I planted my carrot seeds, you know, it had to be beautiful. And of course, my mom also says that they really missed me when I went to college, because every Christmas I was the one that decorated the house. And they didn't know what to do. Of course, they also said I used to talk a lot at dinner, and everything went really quiet when I left. And I said, oh my God, I dominated? And they said, no, you were just so interesting.
So beauty was always part of your life then too? It was important to you?
I didn't know how to articulate that, Jill, you know. Yeah. Beauty became even more so. When I fell in love with my husband, well, ex-husband, it was very beautiful. I had always dreamt of a knight in shining armor and just lovely experiences with young children and making the Christmas and the birthday cakes, and which I did do. It did happen. And he, in his music, in his creativity, I lived through that. And through the creativity of creating a home. And then it came that life changed that. It took me a while to adjust and understand what my next step was. And that was that I was to discover the beauty that I could create beyond just the home. And it started with creating who I was. So I woke up from the vision that I always dreamt of being the wife and the mom, to discovering that I had this gift that I was also destined to have to do, to manifest. So it started with on the physical plane, where I was led through different disharmonies, physical disharmonies, to discover how to make this vehicle healthy. Nutrition became totally emphasized. And then I went into the beauty of what my meals looked like. I then went on to the next cycle of balancing my emotions. Because if you don't have that in control, you cannot be the conductor of your life. So I was honored to meet Dr. Werner Engel, who was the top Jungian in New York City. He then turned me on to Gerhard Adler in London, who was one of Carl Jung's top 5. And that was interesting. That really got me to understand another part of myself. Then it became the mental plane, my thoughts, the man-eating thoughts, the doubts and all that. I was led to meet a man called Nico Thellman, who helped me greatly with that part of my development and evolution. I was also involved with Lily Cornford in mental color therapy, an esoteric form of healing. And now I think I'm involved with love and beauty. And that's a whole nother story.
So Ginger, your inner development was influenced by these wonderful people. How did the soul of an artist come about for you?
It's quite a path of discovery for people, to discover your true soul nature and then find what your line of service is, which is the way that you radiate and have a form of action, so to speak, that's really coming from your soul. Now, there seemed to be another parallel evolution going on from the one I just mentioned. And that was, I was led to meet a Sufi teacher called Mrs. Irina Tweedy. And after a few weeks with her, I brought a book that I was thinking of writing and have illustrated. And she says, well, dear, I think you must go see this man called Cecil Collins. He is, to me, I've known 3 wise men in my life, and he's one of them. And there won't be much left of you but rice paper. But it'll be important for you to go there. So I went off, and I went to sign up. He taught in the City Lit, the ILEA, and I didn't get in. So I went and told her. I said, oh, well, I'll just work on the book. Next thing you know, within a few weeks, I get this little card in the post saying that I had a place. And apparently I found out years later that Mrs. Tweedy asked one of her devotees called Miriam Friedman, who's actually one of my best friends here, to go and tell Cecil that it was really important that I had to do the class. So that's how it all started. And what he inspired all his students was to create from the energy of your soul. He would use different terminology, so that what is born in the form is something that speaks from the highest of what we are. And so the seed started getting a different type of water. I went once every afternoon for nearly 15 years. And you know what he said to me at first? He goes, and I showed him these wonderful little architectural drawings that I'd made of our time in Greece. He says, Ginger, that's okay. That's lovely. But I want you not to do any artwork for 2 years and just come to my class. And I did it. I was in rock and roll, and I did that. And I'm really glad I did, because he said that we have to paint or respond to the matrix of life, which is this ever-moving rhythm of life. And then you listen and wait for a form to come. Because without that life energy in your drawing or in your form, it's just an object. It's not a divine piece of sculpture that will inspire a person when they look at it to remember that they are a soul of an artist, but perhaps just in the art of living. And that was one of the other journeys that I had as a parallel experience, amongst a few other ones, you know, that are private. He really put me through the mill. I mean, there are a lot of stories that a lot of Cecil students speak about, and there is a book that was published recently. I'm trying to remember what it was called. I'm sorry, Naomi, that's the author. But look up, Google Cecil, and there is one of all of our individual stories. But coming back to mine, being an American, I'm always going around joyful into the room, you know. And one day he's sitting there, he always sat there in the corner. And he goes, Ginger, one day there's going to be a real smile on your face. And boy, I just lost my American confidence. I was so sad through that class. And he really laid it on me, because normally you have to sometimes use your fingers. It used to take me 2 weeks to get the black out from underneath, because you'd have to dunk them into the ink and stuff, or you'd put the brush in your mouth and you'd have to do this and all kinds of things to break your way of thinking how you had to draw that body. It was a life drawing class. And I was always doing perfect little drawings. I'll have to show you one day, these perfect little drawings. And they're just, and he said to me, I'm jumping stories here, but days, classes. And I knew he's sitting there thinking, I'm going to really have to, I had the formula down, how to get through that so that I could be free to let something new be born. Well, he did it to me finally one day, and they were just black blobs. And on that day, we had to have a feather that spit and spluttered and stuff. And then you'd have the fingers, and you'd have to go from 1 to 10 in different grades of dark. And then you'd have a pencil, and then you'd have a reed pen. And he had me, and the whole class, I don't know what happened to them, but for me, it was like I couldn't do the perfect little drawing anymore. It was just black everywhere. That was, I should show you that drawing. I still have it as inspiration to remind me. But it took a while, because I have this mental ability that I can, as part of my intuitive soul of the artist as well, to where I've had to learn how to integrate the left and the right side of the brain, because both are really powerful. I was a straight A student as well. They had to put me up a class. I could do algebra and trigonometry and chemistry and physics, no problem. And then there was the art that I could just do. So I've had a long journey of learning to balance those two and to love both. That my mind wasn't the slayer of my art and my emotions. It's part of us, and it's all inspirational, and how to integrate it. I'm 63 now, so I've had a lot of journeys towards that. And I feel like I'm just beginning. So watch this space. Another one of those turning points was when he brought in a male model. I had to face my feelings of how do you do this, and how do you enter into another person? It was okay with a woman, but to do it with a man, and I'm married, totally faithful in love, how do you enter a male being and draw it from that point? So that was really put me through my paces that day. And I didn't know how to cope with that. I was frightened of their power to try to possess me until I had my son. And he taught me so much more about the masculine. I really am very grateful to him, because he was tender and soft, and there wasn't this aggression. Yeah, they run around and want to bash things and climb trees and do it. That's an aspect of the will, of testosterone perhaps. But there was this other thing that I was no longer frightened of the masculine. I knew what their deeper nature was. I had been experiencing a fear, an archetypal fear of the negative side of what the masculine power, the quality, has put out into the world. And they forget they're not allowed to have the beauty of the masculine that really, I feel, is innate in them.
I find that really interesting. How did you integrate the masculine and feminine qualities into your art and into your life?
I integrated the masculine and the feminine qualities quite by, again, a natural quality of evolution of my own inner development. And it seemed as though life constantly gives me experiences that I can either have it be a breakthrough and a development and evolution of my understanding of who I am, or it can be a breaking down. So I also used and was inspired to use my art as a catharsis first with myself. And I believe so much that what I am at that moment, or what I have been able to not transcend, but transform, is there on the psychic plane so that an individual will feel it on the subconscious. Cecil used to say sometimes people will raise their umbrella to his paintings and get really disturbed and everything. I said, why? He says, because it's something they're resisting to see in themselves. Because the paradise of beauty and of wonder and of wisdom and of joy and of love is something that some people are really frightened of. But it's there and we forget. And that's part of my journey. And so coming back to your question about the masculine and feminine, it seemed as though I was led to it, because suddenly I was inspired to do a series on relationship. I didn't want to just do relationship. I wanted to do what is the highest relationship. So when I go into my studio, and I was led to do the lovers. Oh, the greatest lover was there in my studio with me as that was being created. But the highest one, where a man and a woman, all of our dreams of what is possible between human beings happens in that sculpture. And interestingly enough, it was finished on February the 14th. I couldn't have planned it. They did it. If there's a they, whatever it was, it was like, wow, okay. And then the next one was the mother and child. And oh, I love the little bottom of the child of this sculpture. And then it came Sacred Vow, which was to do with the highest commitment between a man and a woman. Now you can also read this as your commitment to your masculine if you're in a female body, and vice versa if you're masculine with a commitment to the highest of your feminine. We all have it, but we don't live it. We live on this other plane of fear and doubt and confusion, and I want to help us see the fact that it's there in the violet, in the sea, in the rainbow, in you, in your heart, and in my heart. I had to see it in me first, so I could say, I love you. And it can come through my heart, into my art. And every one of them has a story that it tells and shares in like creating a triangle of relationship, the masculine and the feminine, but also the soul. So everything in life is to do with the balance of those principles. And that's what I seek to do in my art, is to and in myself. It's just my passion to live that triangle, and then to manifest the divine gift that I've been given to be able to be an artist in this way. You can be a singer, you can be a dancer, most of all be human, because it's special to be human, really special. And it's not all CNN. It's far beyond CNN. And you don't have to accept that story. That story's small. Don't make it big. Make your soul and the beauty of life big. And smile and play.
That's really beautiful, hearing about your personal journey. What's your feeling about the role art might play in shaping the future?
Yes. Do you want the short version or the long version? I have feelings about how art will shape the future, or at least influence it, or perhaps guide it. And the reason being is that creativity is really, really important to one's life. It isn't that you have to sit down and draw with a pencil. There's something about the act of being creative that is important to shaping even your future. And we're all one. It links us with the universe, with nature, and with each other. We're living in a really dynamic time at the moment. Some people might think that there's a great breaking down of our society, what's familiar. I actually think there's a breaking through, a reshaping, and it's down to your point of identification. Creativity will help you to touch that divine in yourself, to see the fact that there's this beautiful energy of love, greater than we've ever felt in our skin, coming onto the planet. But any time that you reach another level of refinement in yourself, mankind's going through one collectively at the moment, I feel. And so do a lot of teachings and teachers and other people on the planet. Anytime that happens, it might seem like something's breaking down. It has to. And art can influence that. We need new images than the spin that we look at all the time that says, oh my God, we're breaking down. It's a global financial crisis. Yeah, there's a lot of changes. We've gone crazy with our spending and using and forgetting to even take care of ourselves. There is change that we have to do and respond to. But if you know it's because of a greater level of love is coming to us, it'll be a lot easier. A lot easier. So I feel within my path as an artist, I want to share that with you. I want to share it with as many people as possible to touch your hearts and tell you, I love you, and so does life. It's there waiting for us. It hasn't gone away. You just have to find it, and it's through creativity you can find it. So I think it's important for me to do these videos. This is the first, hopefully, of many that I can share, because I feel like in doing that, I'm one with you in beauty. We are united.